Coogs house. Houston Cougars' success this fall will rely on Conner Weigman to be the five-star prospect he once was, and transfer tight end Tanner Koziol is set to make sure that happens.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Please make your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. You want to join the conversation, but you don't know what to say. Tell us in the comments down below if you are a shrimp person, a crawfish person, if you're more of a sausage and the gumbo kind of person. When it comes to that Cajun seafood, what do you dive into first? Today's show is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. More on that fun later. But Houston's got a big season coming this fall, and Tanner Koziol is raking in the different kind of accolades in the summer, the preseason kind of stuff. I want to talk about that some and how he's going to unlock this offense and Conner Weigman. I want to talk about other tight ends as well in the second segment. And in the third segment, we'll switch a round ball, and I want to talk to them about a big-time visitor coming to Houston this week. Big time kind of being the double entendre there. But Tanner Koziol, a transfer, comes from Ball State. He spent a chunk of time at Wisconsin, but not even a lot of time at Wisconsin. He is a 6'5", 6'7". I think at one point he was listed 6'5". He must have grown because he's more commonly listed 6'7" now. 250-pound guy, big, strong, fast, had 94 catches last season at Ball State, 8.9 yards per catch, had 8 touchdown catches as well, playing the tight end position, 2 different 100-yard games. For reference as to how many touchdown catches 8 is, the entire Houston Cougars roster last year had 9 touchdown catches. Now, we know those problems from the past. We have made changes. We've changed offensive coordinator, etc. But I do think that that's worth pointing out. And in February, Pro Football Focus college football writer Max Chadwick was calling Koziol a top 5 returning tight end all of college football. At the time, he was committed to Wisconsin. Last season, he was ranked as the top tight end taken in next year's draft, the 2026 class. He and Eli Stowers and Lance Mason's at Wisconsin. One of the reasons that Koziol left was to get more catches and balls thrown his way, and want to be the top dog for sure. Where he was, it sounded like that wasn't quite how things were going to shape out, even though he might have been told that at Wisconsin. They're all kind of in a bunch, although that Koziol is ranked at the top analytically speaking. I will say that that trio is pretty far separated from the guy in fourth as far as next year goes. At Ball State, he was big, strong, fast, won a bunch of 50-50 balls. He had 26 contested catches or 50-50 balls last season per Pro Football Focus. The next highest tight end had 17 such catches. He really is an impact wide receiver in a tight end frame, which offers a whole slew of different options in the red zone, short yard situations, even just on first down to set up more manageable second and third, and so on. For what it's worth, last year he was the 4th ranked tight end in Pro Football Focus's analytical rating, or they look at a bunch of things about where you're supposed to be, the play you make, etc., and they grade you across Pro Football Focus. He was the 4th tight end last year in all of college football. The 3 guys ahead of him. Now, admittedly, because I played at Ball State last year, so you got to grade that grain of salt a little bit. Moving into the Big 12 is going to be more challenging. But the only 3 guys that had better seasons than him last year are presently in NFL training camp. Like, that's the kind of guy we're talking about here at the tight end position. And he comes into an offense with Conner Weigman, also transferred in. Weigman showed up earlier, obviously last December. And in this offense, you're looking at a chance for a quarterback to revitalize his career, kind of get the fresh start he needs with this gigantic tool at his disposal, like a literal gigantic tool. Again, listed at most recently at 6'7", 250 pounds, and the kind of guy can go up and win 50-50 footballs. When you look at Wegman's A&M stuff, admittedly, he was hurt last season, right? So I don't want to put too much emphasis on the troubles he had throwing the ball deep last season. He did have an injury, right? And that changes how you throw the football. But his most accurate stuff, right? The stuff that he threw the best, the most pinpoint stuff that Wegman threw was all between 0 to 10 yard in that window, not behind the line of scrimmage, not swing passes and screen passes, the true, like that first 10-yard window where the ball travels that far in the air. And that is coincidentally exactly where you see most of Koziol's catches as a tight end, where it's just, hey, I'm going to run a quick button hook. Think about like Jason Witten and Tony Romo's connection back in the old Cowboys days. It was all over TV. They didn't win a whole lot of playoff games, right? But they were all over TV all the time because he'd run a 7-yard button hook and exactly where he knew exactly the ball was going to be because he knew Tony and Tony knew exactly where to put the ball. You're looking at that kind of from an athlete to athlete perspective kind of connection here if they can continue to build it. I would point out too that Wegman's 2023 season when he was not hurt yet. So his not hurt yet season at A&M, he did have 2 injuries right in his 2 years as a real player there. Before he redshirted his actual freshman year. He was also a much better passer in those couple games he got to play before getting hurt. But when you look at what Weigman and where Weigman puts the ball and the kinds of things Weigman does well, it pairs up well with having a good tight end. Now, you could say that about a lot of quarterbacks. Tight end is frequently called the quarterback's best friend. Totally get that logic, right? But this connection is one that Houston needs to build. Recently, Pro Football Focus put out the top returning tight ends in the Big 12 Conference. No surprise that Koziol is at the top of that list. And as I mentioned, he's one of the best returning tight ends in all of college football. It's odd to think of him as a returning player because he is new to Houston. And so I think people don't expect a lot out of Houston's offense because even with Weigman coming in and Nagle being changed into at the offensive coordinator now coming from Tulane, people just tend to think about last year's results and how much could you grow and develop in last year and not factoring in like Houston's got a lot of roster turnover in a positive direction, right? A lot of roster turnover in a positive direction. Obviously, Weigman's going to need the time to throw. It sounds like they've got, I think Fritz told us at Media Days, go back and watch the interview, but they brought in 5 guys with starting Division I experience. Then they returned a couple guys of starters last year's team. They, had guys on the redshirt list last year that are now able to come in. You're looking at a larger group of guys. I bet you only have 2 returning starters in the offensive line from last year, and Ndukwe and Pancake. Pancake being Demetrius Hunter at center. And Ndukwe play a right tackle, I imagine. And you had a whole host of other guys competing, but I think there's going to be a lot of competition for those spots. And if they can keep Conner Weigman upright, I could see another, nearing 100 catch season for Koziol very quickly. I'm talking in the second segment some about how all of these tight ends will be used a lot by Slade Nagle in the new offense. But on the whole here, right, Koziol would be a weapon in any offense he was in. He played almost 600 snaps last year, over 570 of them. He was either at the H-back or inline position, right? So he's like on line of scrimmage in the tight end kind of spot or at the H-back spot. That fits perfectly with what Nagle wants to do. But I want to point out too that he did a decent, more than just a couple. He had more than 24 snaps out wide as well as a wide receiver. He's got that kind of hands, and frankly, if you can draw some man-to-man matchups, has the ability to go win those jump balls as well. And he continues to rack in these kind of like subtle things, like the top returning tight end on Pro Football Focus for the conference or whatever. And it's like, I don't quite know why people don't understand that if this guy is as successful as or has the connection with Weigman he can have, this team will be a lot more successful in offense and have a really, really strong offensive year. Right now, it is year 1 for Weigman and Nagle to work together, the offensive coordinator. It is year 1 for a lot of these new bodies to work together. So I get that is a factor, but I think they've got some really good, talented tight ends in the room around them as well. I want to talk about them in the second segment. But before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at 5 5-hour energy. Now it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy's transfusion. It brings the bold grape ginger and lime flavor to your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this is a hole in one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days you're just kind of off of it on the course. It's hot, it's tight, you're tired, long night with the toddler, night before. Okay, that might be personal, but whatever the case may be, you might just need a little extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Now, I I enjoy a good round of pitch and putt. I am a very very amateur golfer, but I can't risk being tired. I need the energy, and that's where 5 energy helps me pick up my golf game as well. Golf is all about good times, good people, and good flavors, of course. Now, the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse. Go chasing down the beverage cart. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use promo code locked on golf for 20% off your order. This code is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used for other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you mean to go with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Or transfusion flavored 5-hour energy shots today. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here, talking the tight end room, transforming this Houston Cougar offense. I mentioned in the first segment that Tanner Koziol, the transfer from Ball State, kind of through Wisconsin, is a game changer for what he can do with one Conner Weigman. I also want to point out, though, that there are two other really talented tight ends in this room, and Luke McGarry and Jaden York returning, and say that the complementing ways that their talents interact with one another is a big deal, and that Slade Nagle is the right offensive coordinator to get those three guys all to success this season. Jaden York, if you don't remember, transferred from Texas Tech 2023 offseason, played 89 snaps on offense. Was that 2020? No, last year. And he had a basketball background in high school, got to play some at Texas Tech, and he started 11 games last year as a tight end. And sorry, the 89 snaps was his last year at Tech. He started 11 games last year. I still have to say that he still feels like an unknown product. Last year, Malik Carr kind of developed into a pass catching tight end, which made Jaden York become the blocking tight end because, frankly, for as big as Malik Carr was, the basketball background in his case turned into more of a going up and getting the ball like a rebound kind of thing. Jaden York's basketball background, you see him play as much more of the defensive minded thing about bumping in the post, like getting that arm on guys, that kind of stuff. He's a great pass blocker and really ranks as such on Pro Football Focus when you look at his analytical stats and stuff on there as well. Now, Jaden's going to be an interesting guy here because he returns. He's the lone returner of this triumvirate of tight ends I'm talking about, but he didn't play for Slade Nagle. So the roles will be different. I do think, though, that what's interesting about Nagle's offense, if you assume he's doing what he did at Tulane, you're going to see multiple tight ends and H-back type guys on the field. And his athletic versatility means that Jaden York, to me, fits that spot where he can play some H-back, can play some tight end, can block here, can catch there, can do all kinds of different things. And while he may not be the dominant pass catching force that Tanner Koziol is, I don't think he can't catch the ball. Like, it's not like he's got rocks for hands. I think he's going to be okay there. So Jaden York is one of the two guys to fill out this triumvirate. Obviously, Tanner Koziol is the other. The third is transfer Luke McGarry. Luke McGarry comes from Tulsa, just 26 catches in 2 seasons there. He did catch a ball against Washington the year that Washington won the national championship game, like that Washington, while he was at Tulsa. But he was also ranked as the second best pass blocker that is not an offensive lineman in the American Athletic Conference. He is a really strong blocker himself. I think what's interesting in doing some digging on Luke McGarry is he went to a small, not small, but like a big football program, but a private high school in DFW. He played linebacker his entire high school career, and his senior season went to playing 2 positions, but they didn't use the tight end quite the same way as some college programs do, right? He kind of feels like he's only played this position for a limited amount of time, right? So he's growing into it. I think that sets the stage for McGarry to have a pretty strong season this year in Houston as that third tight end. Again, I think we can anticipate Houston playing multiple of these guys on the field at a time. And so you're going to rotate them at some point as well. McGarry, to this point, has demonstrated that he's much more of a blocking tight end and H-back than a pass catching one. But I think that's really just because we haven't seen the opportunity, not because we have any evidence he lacks the skill to do that, right? So suddenly you've got three different guys. York, kind of a hybrid. McGarry's been a blocker. Koziol is much more of a dominant pass catching kind of tight end. And we look at what Slade Nagle has done. He comes into Houston after having been at Tulane for a while. And when you look at his offense at Tulane, right, in both the 2023-2024 seasons at Tulane, the tight ends accounted for roughly a quarter of the catches, and that's a lot. I want to stress across college football, most teams do not have a single tight end catching a quarter of the balls thrown, right? That's just not something you see happen. He Slade Nagle pretty consistently utilizes the tight ends a lot in the pass game because he has two of them on the field. You only get 11 guys. One of them is the quarterback throwing, five of them the offensive linemen. He uses everyone on the field in an impactful way, and he has two tight ends out there. They're catching more balls. And 2023, Alex Bowman had 35 catches and 5 touchdowns at Tulane. Only one wide receiver on their roster that season had more catches, and only one other wide receiver, a different guy, had more touchdowns. Bowman was a key part of the passing game. I think that's where you see Slade Nagle using a guy like Tanner Koziol or Jaden York as a combo guy. He also had other tight ends that got double-digit catches, so you could see multiple of them on the field. Well, you got multiple of them in this locker room. So I think that's going to be strong. But if you think that's just a one-off kind of thing back in 2022, similar kind of split with different names. And to his credit, I mean, it's a true system thing for Nagle. But tight end Tyreek James had 25 catches and 4 touchdowns. Only 2 wide receivers had more touchdowns than Tyreek James. Only 4 had more catches. He really, really uses this position group a lot. And when you start seeing these guys, Tanner Koziol, Jaden York, Luke McGarry, kind of pick up some steam across the conference, it's like, hey, I kind of forgot about that guy. Hey, that was a big time transfer. It's not the sexy positions necessarily, right? I do think that as we look to unlock this football season, and people start to remember, like, oh, wait a second, they have a former 5-star quarterback throwing to the best tight end in college football, and the backup is a guy that started for them a year ago, and his backup is a guy that is only in his 4th year of playing the position, but is the right size and speed. Like, suddenly, you've got a really, really interesting and deep roster at that position. Now, I say to say that we're going to be looking at a lot of things football in the month of August, obviously getting ready for the football season as we kind of turn the tide and look towards the 28th. But while it's a position that kind of goes by the wayside in a lot of other rosters, tight ends are not something to forget about when you look at Houston and what's going to happen this season. Now, speaking of what's going to happen this season, it's going to be a good basketball year. It always is. And the Houston Cougar basketball team, as we turn to round ball, have a really big time, impactful player visiting as a recruit this week. I want to talk about him in just 1 second. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here. Switching over to round ball as we talk about the Houston Cougars recruiting season this summer. The class 2026 is heated and underway, and Houston is in on some big time names. We talk about how Peach Jam went and who they were talking to at Peach Jam and who they were watching at Peach Jam and stuff like that in the EYBL circuit. But big fella Arfon Dion, Arfon Dion plays for Iowa United. Iowa Colony's the school in Houston. He plays for Iowa United AAU program in the Three Stripes circuit. That is the Adidas circuit in the summertime. This guy is legitimately over 7 feet tall. I mean, I saw one measurement had him at 6'11", and then you go watch the video, like, there's no way that guy is under 7 feet tall. He's also listed 285 pounds, and look, the kid is 17, so I don't mean this in a way that shames anybody. He's probably gonna get in better shape playing at Houston, um, but it's not the kinda thing where it looks like it's pulling back from his game at all right now. He's really, really big, really, really strong. We'll talk about his game some in a second, how he fits in with Houston. But Arfon Dion is visiting Houston this week. He's also visiting SMU this week. The only other visit I could see scheduled for him is to visit Arkansas in late August. I bet he's going to Arkansas to watch their opening football game. If I'm being completely honest, like kind of a thing to do on campus while he's showing off the campus or whatever. But Sampson and crew really, really like this guy's game a lot. He's Arafan Diane has been compared to Nikola Jokic as far the like multiple time MVP, NBA Finals MVP, Nikola Jokic. Yet that guy, um, he's got that kind of touch. He's got that kind of vision. The guy's just a tremendous offensive basketball player with a good motor on defense and phenomenal. You can't teach it kind of size. Houston sent Sampson to go up and meet him in person and talk to him some in person last April. I couldn't find a date from earlier, but it did sound like in hearing about that visit, that was not the first time that Sampson and company had talked to Arafan Dion. It certainly seemed familiar at that point. Then when we talk about Houston and Sampson, those guys flying all over the country this summer for different AAU circuits, frequently when they were in Adidas circuit territory, they were out watching Iowa United to go watch him play. They were doing it as recently as just last week. Dion is a true special talent. I was looking up stuff on this guy. I was trying to, if I'm being honest, I want to make sure I was pronouncing his name correctly. But I found a interesting stat on how dominant of an AAU summer Arfon Dion just had. Swish Theory is a group that, like a blog group that writes about NBA draft prospects and this and that, and tries to get in on guys early to have a bunch of background on them. The Swish Theory writer was doing analytical data on the three stripe circuit and looked at senior year. So you're like summer before your senior of high school, points per possession on post ups for people, typically big guys, inside of 15 feet. In those situations, Arfon Dion is 1.255 points per possession. That means in a possession, you can expect him to score a point. That means he's doing a basket more than once out of every 2 times, if you're just trying to keep track, right? It doesn't mean he scored the basket, he might assist in the basket, but a basket happens more than once out of every 2 times he gets the ball inside of 15 feet in an ISO type situation, right? For reference, Paolo Banchero was number 1 overall pick and is rookie of the year and was all kinds of stuff with the Orlando Magic and frankly has them to be kind of a contender in the East right now. He was 1.08 in the same situations, so a solid 0.16 points difference between the two. And Banchero was the next highest in the last 10 years. The next highest in the last 10 years, and there were 0.16 difference. Now, listen, I get that Banchero is not a traditional post-up player, so I get the sample size argument. So I went to the next post player I could find, a guy with a similar game, actually, in Derek Queen, who was just a lottery pick, right? Derek Queen had 1.024 points per possessions in these isolation type situations inside of 15 feet. The dominant offensive force that our Arfon Dion is truly unreplicable across stat books. Like it doesn't really pan out. He's so big, so strong, so skilled. He's got such great vision, such great touch. Yes, he can hammer it home and I feel like he's going to break the backboard. And also, he has a little running hook shot from like 7 feet that has more touch than any guards does. He passed the ball in a ways that like he sees the ball at the court like a point guard from that extended dunker spot area, from the high post area. He finds Cutter. The guy's just really talented. Again, truly over 7 foot tall, easily with a positive wingspan. I mean, hands are down at the bottom of his shorts as he's standing straight up. I saw one place listed his standing reach at 9'5". That means flat foot standing. He can touch 9'5", which would imagine he's close to dunking without having to jump. Um, really, really dominant force. And defensively, he blocks a lot of shots, gets a lot of rebounds. I do think that at flirting with 300 pounds, just over 7 foot tall, you're talking about a guy that will come to Houston and at some point in those first, I don't think it'll take more than 2 years. It might take 2 seasons, but between Bishop and Kelvin Sampson, who works the bigs, and Kelvin really works the power forwards, but the unique skill set Arafan Diane has, I think he might actually end up fitting more like a giant one of those. Um, he really like this guy's a top 3 pick in the NBA draft one day, and I think that he understands what Houston can do for him. Arfon Dion comes from Guinea and is playing in Iowa at a boarding school prep program, as well as playing for his Iowa United club. He played for Guinea in the FIBA World Cup U19 group. I think he understands the work it takes. He's literally going across the world to find a chance and opportunity. I think the best opportunity for him is Houston. And look, SMU in Arkansas, Calipari, Arkansas, that's a fun program. Yeah, right? Sampson and the development that this program has, Allen Bishop and the development that weight program has shown, and frankly, the style of play. Like, listen, if Arafan Diane wanted to show out that he could, improve on anything you want to make a weakness, and I say make a weakness because it does not have many in his game, right? But if you want to say that the number one center in the class 2026 wanted to turn his weaknesses into strengths, there's not a better program to do that than Houston. And we've heard Sampson say before about it's typically about guards, right? But he's said before he will take guys that can get buckets on their own in ISO, and he's going to coach up the defense and let them figure out on offense, right? He said that about Sasser, top 25 pick. He said that about Shed, 4-year NBA contract. He said about Jarris Walker, lottery pick. He said that about guys last season too. He'll say it again about Flemings and Sanak and the guys in the 2025 class right now. Truthfully, when you do that with Arfon Dion's interesting because I don't think he's a traditional center. I don't think he's really a power forward. He's just a different dude. He's a positionless big man, and I think that it'll be interesting to see how that translates into a big guy for Houston because he is a hub type player that you got to play through on offense. But I do think that Houston is the place for him to go because of the chance for him to show off what I mean, listen, right now the knock on him, if you're going to make a knock, is that he's got to get in a little bit better shape. What coach is going to fix that better than Sampson fixes that? And listen, I don't mean to say that Sampson can also exacerbate the things he's good at. I think he will, but this just feels like a great fit. And these guys have clicked. They're always smiling and laughing, and again, Sampson went out of his way to go see him last April, coming right off of a national championship appearance. Right, like that is really, really. It tells you a lot about where Sampson has this guy's priority list. I feel like, right? Now, I think that defensively, right now, he can play a lot of zone type coverages and stuff like that. So he's in the backside dunker spot, calling out what's happening, and then coming over from help side and stuff like that. And we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But his school team in Iowa, the boarding school, prep school, just got admitted to the EYBL Scholastic circuit. So he'll be very much put on display this season. There'll be games, frankly, you can watch him play on TV. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to commit in the summertime, but I do think he's the kind of guy that's going to commit in like September, October, and he's going to like dramatically change the trajectory of a program he goes to. Now, Houston's trajectory is up and forward, and so I know that Houston has to, focus on that necessarily aspect of his recruitment. But this guy's a game changer for a lot of folks. He's coming to visit Houston this week. He is he from Guinea. People are calling him the African Jokic. I mean, he can do everything on offense. At 7'1", between 285 and 300 pounds. I mean, the giant. Now, if he were to commit, we can talk about how that impacts Chris Sinak, how that impacts JoJo Tugler, how it impacts Jacob McFarland, Sid Lott, all those guys down the line. But for right now, the impact on the program will be positive. You got to go try and get this guy. And he's coming to campus this week. Could not find a specific date, but it's already Tuesday. Speaking of this week, as we wrap up Locked On Coogs here, um, tidbit on me is we're going to, I think I tweeted about this. We're going to Rockport as a family, Rockport, Texas, from a nostalgic Texas beach trip. So I do not have officially nothing scheduled for Wednesday or Thursday. So we'll be back Friday. Friday episode will be up for you to start off August and get ready for the countdown to football season. Get into the weekend with some of that. I am taking my equipment. So if big things happen, commitments, whatever, football, basketball, etc., we will find a way to get something done. Nothing's scheduled right now. So enjoy the break with me, or if something big happens, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you know we're live, because we'll come back and visit that as we need it. Locked on Coogs Premier, the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day, except for these next 2 days, so I got to take vacation. Gotta enjoy the beach, man. Gotta enjoy Rockport. Love Rockport, Texas. Go Coogs.